everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Chloe Chan, and today we have our guest, Lance Lawsin. He is a six-time ATA World Championship. He's been on ESPN when he was in fourth grade. He's a three-time ESPN Invitational Champion. He's appeared on Charlotte's Kids Got Talent, where he won, and he's a six-time Pan American champ, 30 state North Carolina titles, and he's also hosted multiple weapons and forum seminar. And today he still teaches Taekwondo and ATA. We'll have our team member Adrian Tong interviewing him today.
All right, Lance, our first question for you, just a quick background thing. How did you get involved with Taekwondo?
So I started ATA when I was 4. My parents brought me in. I'm not sure why, but they just brought me into the local ATA school here. I did a opening training session, and I started to like it. So I kept going on until I got my black belt when I was 8, and then started competing. And I won my first 4 world championships when I was 8, but it all started when I was 4, and I started to really like it along with my brother. But my brother decided to quit when he was around like 10 years old.
Going to World Championship at such an early age is obviously quite unusual, and it must have been a difficult road to get there. So could you talk a little bit about what it was like what the process was going to the World Championship and how it felt to be there?
Okay. So to get to the World Championships, it's the top of my age division. My first division was 8 years old and under. It was a pretty good division. There was a lot of kids, but the competition includes the top 10 of my division. So the top 10 kids in my division compete. But with that, I had to do like hours and hours of training with my master and my instructor, working on the little details to try and get the better score at the tournament. And a lot of dedication went into it as well.
So how long were you training weekly? Like a couple hours?
I think at a month out of the World Championships, I would train at least 3-4 hours a day, staying in the dojo, just training, doing my forms, looking at the little details, maybe even adding stuff as well.
Very impressive. So I heard that you were on ESPN at the age of 9, and the announcers said that your ability to feed off the crowd's energy gave energy to your own performance. And obviously, you're very successful, winning 6 times. What do you think factored into your success? Like, what are the aspects of your style, your personal style, that you think had led you to where you are today?
I think the aspects that led to where I am today is just my desire to keep going, and my overall performance. When I go, I stand out compared to my competitors with my intensity, and especially the size difference. Usually I was smaller than most of my competitors. They were always up here to me and I was down here, so I would stand out while being on their same level or maybe even better. But feeding off the crowd's energy was always great, especially on ESPN. Like, there was a camera and then the big crowd in front of me. It was a really great experience. I was able to really feed off that energy because I'm used to competing in that sort of environment, especially at the World Championships as well, where I'm in a ring and then there's parents and family surrounding me, just giving me energy, them cheering me on. All that factors into me doing a great performance.
I know that now you are more into the teaching aspect of Taekwondo. So what inspired you to keep teaching others, or even what inspired you to make the transition from being a competitor to more of a teacher?
Well, I stopped competing when I was around 14 years old because at that time, like, most of my competitors were much stronger, much faster. They were able to do many more things that I could do. So I felt like at that time, I had to really focus on school more and stop competing. But I really wanted to keep that martial arts spirit in me by passing it on to younger students and just giving them my knowledge, because from my past instructors, they've given me a lot of knowledge, like a lot of things to look at when doing your form, when sparring, wherever in karate. I just feel like I can't have that information just kept in me. I have to give it to other people. I feel like that was the best way to go with it.
There's a pretty specific representation of martial arts in the media. You see like Cobra Kai being really popular as of lately. I don't know if you're familiar with the show. And then you've got the more old time martial artists, Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, with their movies featured on the front page of Netflix. What's your, and this is just a broad question, take it anywhere you want. What is your opinion on the media's representation of traditional martial arts?
Personally, I really like it. Watching Cobra Kai, I feel like they give a good demonstration of like self-defense, and I mean there is an aspect of attacking people, but that's usually the antagonist of Cobra Kai is attacking people. When mostly Taekwondo and Karate is defending yourself, I feel like they give a really good representation of that because they demonstrate really good moves, and they also bring traditional aspects into it with blocks, kicks, punches, all that good stuff. But I think overall, the media represents karate very well. I don't think there's really anything they could do other than, I think, just adding those a little more traditional moves into it because I feel like there is a good amount of it, but the way that they block the kicks and all that good stuff, I feel like they could add more to that.
So on that note, a pretty big criticism of shows like Cobra Kai is that they factor in a lot of like flashy techniques. I don't know if you're familiar with the term martial arts tricking, but there are a lot of flips, stuff like that that you wouldn't normally see, you wouldn't normally expect from traditional karate. And a very popular criticism among martial arts critics is that shows like Cobra Kai are kind of derailing the more traditional and solid styles of karate and taekwondo. And obviously you yourself are an XMA practitioner, so you don't strictly adhere to those traditions yourself. So what do you make of this situation? What do you believe? Do you think these critics are correct? Do you think that they are off by a bit?
I think they are off by a bit because traditional karate, I mean, the flips and crazy tricks that they're doing necessarily isn't traditional karate. It leans more towards XMA, which is what I do as well. So I think they're confusing traditional karate with those crazy tricks and flips with XMA. But I feel like that they think the crazy tricks and the stuff that they do in Cobra Kai relates to traditional karate, which I personally think it doesn't. I think it relates to the more XMA side, where in XMA you're allowed to do any tricks, flips, cool tosses. There's nothing really traditional about it, but that's my stance on that.
And on a more broader note, what do you really make of the more hyper modern styles of, like even maybe XMA or martial arts tricking, things that don't really adhere to any traditional martial art really at all, as you can design your own sequences and your own moves. Where do you think that stands today among the other numerous martial arts?
I think it's really evolving. There's a lot more new tricks, new kicks, new flips that you can do to add to your form. And I feel like it just it doesn't necessarily take away from the traditional aspect, but it's a good way to veer off from, because normally traditional forms and weapons, in my opinion, is viewed as not necessarily boring, but like it kind of gets old. So I feel like the new style of XMA, doing all those cool tricks and flips, gives people excitement, and I feel like it's a more exciting thing to look at and do rather than traditional like karate.
On the topic of new tricks and flips, do you have a signature move, or do you have one that you like the most?
I do. It's called the cartwheel full. It's where I do a cartwheel and then I do kind of like a backflip with a twist in it.
Nice. So I'm going to move on a little to just the topic of traditional martial arts, especially traditional Asian martial arts. So currently, and I'm sure you've noticed this as well, but Western combat sports like MMA, UFC, even though they mix styles from across the globe, they have a bit more of an emphasis on styles that are more popular here in the West, like Western boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So as a traditional martial art practitioner, having done Taekwondo for a while, where do you think traditional martial arts stand in relation to that? And where do you think TMA practitioners should go from here?
I like the new style of boxing, kickboxing, all that, but I feel like the traditional style of karate is still the same. I don't think really anything has changed from that. The only thing that has changed is different styles of it, but the overall aspect of traditional karate is still the same with forms that use traditional techniques that are not really advanced or that aren't the like XMA type of moves. But I feel like the new styles of karate aren't taking anything away from the traditional aspect of karate today.
There are also people who believe XMA is not a real martial art due to lack of practical fighting. What would you say to those people?
I can agree with that because in XMA, there's a lot of moves that you would never or normally never use in a fighting aspect or in a fighting environment. But it's definitely not traditional martial arts, but it's a new style of it that has evolved a lot in the past decade, couple of decades. But there is still some aspects of traditional karate within XMA, but there's a lot of aspects within it that aren't normally used in traditional karate or in a fighting environment.
Do you think the practical aspects of it are more important than the demonstrative aspect? Do you think they're just as important, or one is more important than the other?
I definitely think the practical aspects of Taekwondo are more important because the overall idea about Taekwondo is defending yourself. And if somebody attacks you, you'll know how to defend yourself, how to counter whatever they throw at you. And the demonstrative side is just for looks and for judging aspects. When you're at tournaments, the judges will critique you or judge you based on the demonstrative aspect of your form, not necessarily the practical side. But the sparring aspect of karate definitely incorporates the practical side of Taekwondo, having to defend yourself, throwing kicks, punches, and any defensive moves to defend yourself in a fighting way.
And obviously, you've been really successful with performing in more of the demonstrative side. But do you think the practical aspects of Taekwondo, karate have helped you in your life?
It has helped me. I have definitely learned a lot of techniques to defend myself, but I haven't had any instances where I had to use those moves in a real situation. I've only had to use them against people within my karate dojo, but it definitely has helped me. It definitely has given me more knowledge on how to defend myself whenever something will happen to me, which it definitely is likely that I can be attacked. So with that knowledge in mind, I will know how to defend myself in any sort of situation.
Why do you think it's likely that you would be attacked?
Because I don't know if it's not necessarily likely, but there is definitely a chance that I could be attacked if I'm like alone somewhere, or if I bother somebody or they somehow bother me. Like there could be a interaction between us where that could result to violence. But I don't know if it's necessarily likely, but there is always a chance that I could be attacked in any environment.
So another thing that a lot of people say is probably as one of the biggest positives of traditional martial arts is that they teach you other things than just how to fight, like discipline. There's like a certain fighting spirit. I'm sure you've heard the Taekwondo creed. What's your opinion on that? Do you think that you've learned that kind of those kind of internal strength from Taekwondo, and do you think that is more important than the fighting part, or less important?
I definitely have learned those key aspects to karate because at ATA they teach life skills such as discipline, respect, honesty, self-esteem, integrity. All those key things are definitely beneficial to me because I've definitely seen a big improvement in just like my respect to others, being polite, saying yes sir, yes ma'am to anybody in public, doing my homework on time, helping my parents whenever they need it. But definitely those aspects are probably more important than the fighting and traditional aspect of karate because you can use those with anybody, no matter what situation, teachers, parents, strangers, maybe even, because those are definitely really helpful when and being a better person.
And so on a more general note, why do you think it's important for people in today's generation or the next to pick up these traditional martial arts like Taekwondo and karate?
It's definitely good because with these life skills, they can incorporate that into their daily lives, have them become better people. And of course, these traditional fighting aspects of karate, they can definitely they can definitely learn to help defend themselves in any sort of situation whenever needed.
So personally, like as a teacher, how do you teach these skills and values to your students? How do you like to go about it yourself?
When I teach, I usually make sure that they're using like yes sir, yes ma'am. They're showing respect to each other with their fellow teammates or partners. Whenever they're practicing a skill, they make sure they're using self-control, using all those life skills in while doing it. And I think when I teach, I definitely make sure that that they're not like out of control, and that they keep these life skills in mind, and that they use these life skills not just in the dojo, but outside of the dojo with their family, parents, or whatever. And make sure that I ask the parents sometimes if they've incorporated these in the house, and most of the time they say yes, they've done really good in the house, done chores, helped us a lot. And that's really my goal in teaching, is having not having them just incorporate these in the dojo, but outside as well.
Do you think you also learn something from teaching your students?
I do. Mostly patience, because sometimes there are some kids that take a while to learn some things, but definitely they end up getting it. I've definitely gotten better with people skills, talking better with people, students. I've just been more outgoing when teaching. That's what I've learned, and just patience overall as well.
So since you're in the teaching role, I wanted to bring up another criticism that some people bring to traditional Asian martial arts, and that is the idea of black belts being awarded to young students. So I'm sure you've heard this before. People would say stuff like, "Why does this 10-year-old have a black belt when he clearly cannot fight and win against maybe like a 16-year-old who has a white belt?" What would you have to say to that kind of criticism of specifically Taekwondo and karate?
I can semi agree with that, because I've seen some black belts that I personally think don't deserve the black belt that they earned. But when in ATA, to achieve your black belt, there's multiple testing stages, and the judges judge them off of like how good their techniques are, attitude, all that stuff that come in handy or come in mind when receiving that black belt. But there's definitely some black belts out there that, in my opinion, don't deserve it, because in a real situation, it's more likely that they can't defend themselves.
Do you feel the aspect of defending yourself for a black belt is more characterizes someone with the black belt than the, let's say, attitude that they have, or vice versa?
I think both, like the skills you need to defend yourself and the attitude you portray, useful when describing somebody as a black belt, because both are needed to have true attributes to be a black belt, not just one and having one not as good. You definitely need both good skills and attitude to become a qualified black belt.
So for you personally, tell me the story of getting your black belt. Like, what was it like on the day you got your black belt? What did you do? What did you have to do? And how did you feel like in general before you got it, on the testing day, and after you got it?
On testing for testing for my black belt, it was a lot different from my other testings for my color belts, because for my black belt there was a lot more it was a lot more physical and a lot more endurance. You needed a lot more endurance for it, because there was a lot more sparring involved, more forms, more kicks, a lot more advanced techniques that is not usually done in color belt testing. But for black belt testing, there I would usually have to go to a retreat with all the other black belts and test there, where it's very tiring. It's usually over a weekend, and it's a lot more different than color belt testing. But when I got my belt, I was very happy because it took me about 4 years to get my first degree black belt, and then from there, I was really excited to learn new forms, new techniques, and incorporate that into my competition.
From your entire career, what if you could choose one thing? What is the most important thing that you would like to share with anyone who might be viewing this regarding martial arts?
For martial arts, the one thing I've gotten from this is just believing in yourself. Just keep going, keep persevering, because there have been times, especially with balancing karate and school, that I felt like maybe I don't want to do this anymore. Maybe I should just give karate up and just focus on school. But with just learning about and going through many situations and where I had to balance it, I just had to keep going, keep believing in myself, because there's always an end goal that you want to reach. And my end goal personally was receiving those world championships.
And you also, and I want to add on to this, you also talked about the importance of discipline. And so everyone needs to have a bit of that discipline right now, with the global pandemic. What's a piece of advice you would give to someone watching this from your own perspective of having trained in martial arts at an intense level for so long? What's something that could maybe help someone get through their day a little easier?
So especially with this online, or with this pandemic and being online, especially in school, I think you just have to discipline yourself. Just knowing that although we are in a different situation, you just have to keep going, don't stop, because there's always a better tomorrow. And you can't just doubt yourself whenever you're doing something, because although it's hard, it may be hard, there's always a better tomorrow, and you can always brush it off, do it some other time, but definitely make sure you do it on time with the accordance, or with within a certain time period.